Hey friends, it's Guy Hutchinson. Welcome to Pointless Nostalgia. I do a different video every single day. If you're into nostalgia, you're in the right place. Make sure you're subscribed below. Also, click like, thumbs up, whatever is down below. Give me a comment if you have a question or comment, please. I want to know. I want to know what you're thinking. Today, we are getting pointlessly nostalgic about this Wiggles 3-in-1 game tin. I got this from when my son was little. He was a huge Wiggles fan. I got to really like these dudes. This was one of my favorite things about my son's early childhood years. He's long since moved on from the Wiggles, but I got a soft spot in my heart. If you do too, if you grew up with them, we're going to take a look at all three of the games in this tin. We'll see what they are. We'll learn about them. We'll play them maybe. So make sure you're subscribed. Did we do all this? We did all this. If I was a Wiggle, I'd do it in song. I'll tell you some of my Wiggle stories too. So please, let's go. So I first heard of the Wiggles like secondhand. I feel like maybe because they were in the pop culture, at some point I had heard of them, but I didn't know much about them. Didn't know their names. I'm not sure I knew they were from Australia. But my son found out about them when he was very little. I don't know if it was in like pre-K or whatever, but he found out about them. He started watching them, and then I saw that they were going to be at the local arena. And I said, well, I know my son likes those Wiggles. Let's go see the Wiggles. So I told my wife, let's go get some tickets. We'll take him to his first ever concert. It'll be the Wiggles, and it'll be a lot of fun. So we got there, and as we're sitting there and I'm watching them, I was like, these guys are really talented. Are these the guys on TV? Because I don't know. I mean, I go all the time with my kid to see like Sesame Place Live, Sesame Street Live, and it's not, it wasn't the guys from TV inside those costumes. It wasn't the puppeteers. Jim Henson, when I was a kid, wasn't doing Ernie on stage. So was this the real Wiggles? I was curious. So I remember I started looking on my phone while I was there, and I was like, oh, these are the real guys. I loved the show, and then I found out so much more about them. These guys, really interesting path to success for this original crew. The interesting thing about these guys, now we will talk about all of them. We're going to talk about Sam a little bit. He was not one of the original Wiggles. The interesting thing about these guys is they met, some of them, when they were performing in a band that was like a popular band. They did kind of like a 50s throwback kind of sound, but they were a popular band in Australia that sold out arenas. And they were like, I guess this would have been like in the 80s. They were, I think, like the Australian equivalent of something like Duran Duran, So they were like a super popular band. And then they went to college and they all studied early childhood education. And they were very into this. They were very into teaching children. And they still like to perform because they were talented musicians who had sold out arenas. And so they started this idea, the Wiggles. And what I found so interesting was, think about this from the perspective of if you're an Australian parent, right? You're a parent, you've got a little kid. You used to watch these same guys when they had a different name and they were like a rock band. And now they're doing music for your kids. And I got to say, the music was pretty good, right? They were very talented at the music. So you go, you check it out. You're enjoying the show. And that's why I really enjoyed it. All right, let's open this tin up. Let's see what's in it. It says it's got a mini puzzle. It's got a Wiggly board game and a Snap card game. 3-in-1. So this is Murray. These guys, these two are no longer Wiggles. They have replaced the Wiggles a few times. Somehow this guy, Anthony, this one, the blue Wiggle, he's still in the Wiggles, still performing. These guys, this is quite a workout. I've seen them in person, seen them on TV. But this was Jeff. Jeff used to fall asleep all the time. They'd have to say, wake up, Jeff. Murray played the guitar. And then this guy was Sam. Now, Sam was like a temporary Wiggle. He had replaced, there was a Wiggle named Greg who had gotten sick. And then when Greg stepped out, they got this guy, Sam, who replaced Greg. But then Sam left and Greg came back. So I think they kind of forced Sam out for Greg to come back. So it was interesting. We would watch old videos and Sam was like a backup dancer. And then he became, one of the main guys. I remember my son pointing him out to me when we were watching him. I got to meet the newer Wiggles. So I got to meet Anthony. Well, I got to see these two as well as Greg perform live. And we got pictures near them. I don't remember how close we got, but I remember it was like there were always these interactive segments. You would bring a flower for Dorothy. Later, you'd bring a bow for Emma, who was the later yellow Wiggle. She's also now been replaced by a new yellow Wiggle. But they had all these different things. You had to bring Wags the dog a bone. And so we would bring these things to the shows, and then we'd bring them up, and so you'd get to kind of see them, and they'd say your name on stage, which was a really big deal, really neat. But we got close to some of them. But I'm going to tell you a story. I got to meet Anthony and Simon, who was the later red Wiggle who replaced him. Lockie, who was the purple Wiggle. I don't know. I think he's still in the group. And then Emma, who was a yellow Wiggle at one point and is not any longer. But I'll tell you that story. But let's crack this open first, and then I'll get to that story a little bit later. All right. Got a board game here. I don't think we ever played this set. I feel like we bought this and it was like the wrong age for my son when we got it, and then we put it aside and we never got around to it. But here's the Wiggly board game, and it says you're the first one to travel one lap around the board, return to home in the starting position. And it shows all the stuff here. It looks like a pretty simple board game. Almost reminds me of the Pop-O-Matic Bubble layout. If you remember the game with the Pop-O-Matic Bubble, like the layout is kind of like that. You can see here, Wags the dog, Dorothy the dinosaur. She was the Queen of Roses. I remember that. We've got Henry the octopus. And then you got Captain Feathersword. He was always very funny. And then Wags the dog. Did we already do him? Dorothy the dinosaur. Let's keep going in a circle. All right. So we got those. We've got a puzzle. Puzzle's never been out of the package. I think I better put this together. I'll put this together and we'll take a look. Ta-da! I gotta tell you, I haven't put together a puzzle in a while. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this way more than I should. All right, so we've got Greg or Sam over there. We've got wake up, Jeff, don't fall asleep. There's Anthony, and there's Murray playing the guitar behind his head. Fantastic. So I want to tell you the very interesting story about how I met the Wiggles. My son I was dropping him off to daycare, and I knew we were going to see the Wiggles that weekend. We had bought tickets to see them. We probably saw them maybe 5 times during my son's childhood. I remember the last time we went, I could tell. I was like, well, this ship has passed. We got to find something new for him. This is not, what he had just, like here's the age group that it appealed to, and he had just gotten here. And it was kind of sad. I got to tell you, as a dad, I was like, well, now we're moving to a new chapter. We did, and it was great. But we were going to see a Wiggles concert. I was dropping him off at kindergarten or daycare, whatever it was. And as I was dropping him off, I'm looking up right before I leave the house. I'm looking up online, what time do the doors open? Because I remember there would always be a bunch of kids. The kids would all run around in the lobby. I was like, I'll get there early because he always enjoys all that stuff with the other kids. And I was looking it up, and I found a news article that told me the answer, and it said the Wiggles are going to be on the Today Show or whatever that morning. And I was like, I'm not tuning in for that. But then it said, enter here for a chance to meet the Wiggles and ride in New York City on the big red bus. And so I said, well, put in my information, and I take my son, drop him off at daycare, which as a dad, I got to tell you, if you remember it, if you're a dad with a kid that age, you know what I'm talking about. If you have an older kid, you might remember every day was a traumatic event. You'd drop them off, they'd cry, and you'd feel awful as you left. And so I dropped him off. He cried. I felt awful. I'm driving, and my phone bings, and I look, and it says, you won a chance not a chance. You won it. There was no chance. There was no chicanery or anything. NBC was putting me and my family, up to 5 people or whatever the number was. It was really just ended up being the 2 of us on the big red bus with the Wiggles and a few other families. I think a lot of them didn't show up because it was like, they were like, come now. And now I live in New Jersey, but I live close enough to New York City. I was able to turn around. I went to the school. I was like, hey, we won a contest. See the Wiggles. Bring them out. And I brought them out. And he's like, oh, I'm still mad at you. You left me here. And so I drove him. And I'm telling him, we're going to see the Wiggles. He didn't really get it. Like, it wasn't, going through because he was so young. And so we got there. And the Wiggles are right there. I mean, it's like they're right in front of us. Then the Wiggles tell us to get on this bus, and they're right there. We walk right by the Wiggles, my son. And we get on the bus, we sit down, the Wiggles, they bring out their instruments, they play like a very short show, I don't know, 20 minutes or whatever, but really nice. It was so personal and so, such a close space that I remember Emma had to dance up the aisle. And I had to like squeeze my legs in and turn my son because she was, it was that close. Like she was right here. It was great. They were all awesome. I talked to all of them, my son. And I kept saying, I don't know, maybe this is intimidating to him. I didn't know. I'd say, do you want to leave? And but no. And so, so we got done. We got a picture to get with the Wiggles. I took a bunch of videos. I had so much fun. I've really enjoyed meeting them. They were all like super cool. Like, just talking to them, they were regular people, and they would talk about, I'm sorry. They kind of promised us that we could ride with you guys and insurance. They can't. And I was like, this is great. We're hanging out with you guys. It was wonderful. And my son, nothing, right? And so I don't know if he's enjoyed it. He's stone-faced. The photo, he's stone-faced. And so they leave. And the second they are gone, he just burst like an explosion, fireworks coming out of his entire face. He's like, I just saw the Wiggles. And I was like, yes, we did. And it was great. So it was a wonderful day. I remember afterwards we went to the Intrepid, which is in New York City. It was right near where it was because we met them like near one of the piers. And we went to where Yoko's, I know the Intrepid has a better history than this, but what I know it from is Yokozuna was slammed there by Lex Luger. All right, so that's my story about meeting the Wiggles. Let's check out the rest of this game. Already seen the puzzle. We know what that looks like. We have seen the board game. I think we got a general idea of what this is like. Maybe one day we'll play it, but not today. Now we are on to the Snap card game. Here it is. This is the Snap card game. We've got Captain Feathersword. This is interesting. This is, I guess, the logo. Tree Toys, 2008, the Wiggles. There he is. There's Sam. Look at this card. There's Jeff. He's asleep. That's what he would do. You'd have to wake him up. All right, here we go. Here's Wags the dog, Dorothy the dinosaur, and Henry the octopus. I always kind of liked that there were like multiple different costumed characters, and then there were multiple Wiggles, right? So I always kind of thought that maybe it was like a werewolf where like each one of these guys turned into one of these guys. Like, maybe deep down inside, Anthony was actually Wags the dog. I don't know. Maybe that was, I didn't check the credits. Maybe that was the case. Got the details here on the Snap card game. It sounds like it was just War, but you would say Snap if two were the same. So if you've ever played War where you deal your cards out, and if you got 2 matching cards, that's what you do. So I hope you enjoyed this flashback to the Wiggles. I enjoyed talking about them. Right now, a box is going to appear right here. Look, right by my Twinkie the Kid lamp. Right nearby, what was his name, Sully? And then there's another one, look, popping up over E.T.'s face. Look, one here, one here. You got to choose one. I'm on both of them, so it doesn't matter to me. Choose either one you want, and I'll see you next time.